From WBNE.
Hello, and welcome to episode 50, all about the Houses of Healing. Chapter 8, Book 5 of The Return of the King, being the 50th part, of That's What I'm Tolkien About. Can you believe? Hello, my name is Mary Clay. If that's too complicated for you, you can just call me MC. And today I'm joined by Alice and Buddy from Those Happy Places. Welcome, guys.
Hey, glad to be back on the show.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, first I had both of you on, and then I had just Alice on, and then I had Buddy on, and now you're both on for the last book. Well, there's technically one more book after this one.
Now at the end of all things,
6, but...
we have returned to you at the turning of the tide.
Yes. And then also just a quick thing before we move into the chapter discussion. We are recorded. Let's see, what's today's date? I feel like it's always important to say like 10th. This episode was recorded on. So today's June 10th, and this past weekend, I'm sure a lot of you know that J.K. Rowling tweeted some very unfortunate, sad things, disappointing things about trans people and trans women, and it's just really sad and disappointing, honestly, for me. And then today she really doubled down on it, and I just feel really sad about the whole situation, and I just want my listeners to know, obviously you know that I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I'm sure a lot of you guys are huge Harry Potter fans as well, and I just want you to know that I don't at all agree with, any of her statements. And I've had like a lot of, I don't know about you guys, but like over the past couple days, I've been thinking about like, how do you enjoy, the art when you don't support the person who made it and stuff like that. And I think the Harry Potter community is like a really great example of how you can do that, because ultimately I think it's also about like what the fans do with that art and what they use to create with it, and how they form a community around it. So that was a long rambling message anyway.
No, but we completely agree. Obviously trans lives matter, black lives matter, and it's super upsetting to see one of the authors that in the past we have read her work, watched her work on the screen, or even on the stage, and ridden her theme park rides, that she helped create, and lived in that world, the wizarding world of Harry Potter, and seen it as a place of magic and whimsy and escapism, but also a story about like tolerance versus intolerance. And seeing that struggle of good versus evil play out, where the good guys are, a multicultural group of people who don't care about blood purity, and the bad guys are one blood purity sort of a group. And it's really, we learned lessons from Harry Potter that it seems Rowling is not espousing herself, and that makes it really difficult. But we have to deal with the fact that these messages are out there, and we have to do what we can to stand against them. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. We always say do what you can, donate what you can, speak out when you can, and whatever you can do to encourage the community and to make the world a better place. We say do it. And I can't follow up what you guys said. Anyways, that was very well, well put. Big Harry Potter fans. I am. I know that it's been rough, but fan fiction's a thing. So
yeah. Listeners, I will leave some resources in the description if you are wondering, what to think or what to do, or if you're also feeling hurt or upset or angry. I will leave links to to people who maybe have smarter things to say than me. So it's generally my like go-to thing of I'm not as smart on this topic as a lot more qualified people. Go listen to those people. So that being said, speaking of being unqualified, here I am once again reading a book I've never read before. So this is chapter 8, I should also say, Buddy and Alice, congratulations. You are also on episode 50.
Wow. Yay.
Oh, man. Many congratulations.
Congrats to you hitting 50 episodes.
50 episodes of anything is so monumental. And it shocked me to see how far into the books you had come since the beginning of this project. I remember Alice and I were both on episodes in book one. And now here we are again at the end of all things, and
I know, right?
It feels so strange to say that that's what I'm talking about is going to finish the books very soon.
Yeah.
And you're getting so close. He keeps saying at the end of all things. He's quoting from the very end of the story. And you're almost there. And then you're going to watch the films, right?
Yes, 100%.
You're going to love the films, I think.
Let's see. So that's 9. So I will be finishing this it's like, oh my gosh, I'm almost done. Not really. I still have about 3 more months. So
that's so close though. You'll finish before the end of the year. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's just funny because like when I started this, and same with Tyler and Ethan, we are all like, oh yeah, you'll be reading these books for the next 5 years. And I'm like, I'm barely surpassing year 1 with the main trilogy. Sorry, not trilogy. Yeah. It's one book, whatever.
One book, many volumes.
Yes.
And then you've got to do the Silmarillion then, and...
Do I, though?
Well, I do hope that The Hobbit is on the docket at some point.
Oh, of course.
The Hobbit's wonderful.
And it makes a wonderful prequel once you've already heard the original story. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you think of the films. Being such a
so
thorough study of the novels or novel, I guess.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm so mad because like 2 weeks ago, Josh Gad, who I love, he's amazing and a wonderful person. He's the voice of Olaf.
He's such a doll.
He's also I know him as being from the Book of Mormon, which is a hilarious musical.
Yes,
anyway,
he's Elder Cunningham.
He hosted a Zoom reunion with like a bunch of the Lord of the Rings cast, and everyone was messaging me and being like, oh my god, isn't this cool? And I'm like, not really, because I can't watch it. I was like, you guys have fun. Have fun storming the castle. I'll stay here, and I will, revisit this in 4 months when I've, finished the books and watched the movies. So I'm not bitter.
I really think you're gonna love the movies. Oftentimes some of the criticism you have about the books are things that Peter Jackson was fully aware of and went, we can just leave that out if you like.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like the films are like a beautiful streamlined version of the story that I think you'll just die for.
Yeah. So anyway, this is chapter 8, The Houses of Healing. I messaged Buddy and Alice a couple weeks ago when I was starting Return of the King and was like, hey, if you guys want to come back, is there a certain chapter you prefer? And Alice suggested this one. So here they are. Alice, do you have any like particular reason why you picked this chapter?
Well, I definitely remember the first chapter that I wanted to do was the Battle of Pelennor Fields, but somebody else had already called dibs on it. No, I like this chapter. I love this chapter. I love what it has to say about Aragorn. I love I like this chapter because it is short and sweet and symbolic all at the same time. It gives us a lot of little moments for these characters, as well as like almost like a breath in between some really huge things. Also, I think Faramir might be my favorite character in the entire series, so I'm glad it's like
Faramir, our guy.
Yes.
I love Faramir.
Right? Yeah, Buddy was on for one of the like 2 chapters where we have Faramir.
You did one of the chapters in Ithilien?
Yes.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, one of my like main takeaways from this chapter is that we don't deserve Faramir. We don't deserve Éowyn. We don't deserve Merry.
No, they're too good for this world.
I love them all.
So pure, so good.
In the words of the kids, they are precious cinnamon rolls too good for this world.
And Pippin is so sweet, and I really love this chapter. I love the description of the smell of the plants, and I feel like this chapter is just really it's really visual, and it's got a lot of heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what's great about it is it's a chapter about the consequences of the battle.
Exactly.
But also it's about like this renewed hope and optimism in the wake of the battle, which is ongoing throughout the entire chapter.
Yeah, it's not done.
But it kind of feels like, you know, we're trying to have this moment where we see what the cost of heroism is, and then also what the effects of heroism are. So it kind of blends both of them together. And then there's this, like you said, this whole thing with Aragorn, that there's a lot going on with him in this chapter. There are things about what he does that I like. There are things about what he does that I will gladly join in criticizing. But I loved it. I loved listening to it. I was listening to the audiobook. It was just a really, short, sweet, poetic, meditative almost experience to listen to.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to jump in.
Yes.
Yeah. Alice, I think you said that like this chapter, it feels like a break. And that's also appropriate for like the name of the chapter and what's happening. Yes. Because this is a chapter where, you know, I mean, it is a break for the characters as they are sitting and they're healing and they're recovering and they're, you know, planning their next moves. But it's also like a break for the reader as well, because we have, you know, we have moments where characters are reuniting. We have moments where characters are, you know, we're like, oh, great, they're not going to die. That's good news. And like getting it's also like one of the first chapters in a while where it's not like, oh, this is bleak. This is not good news. I mean, it's not great and happy, but it's also... It's a nice, it's a nice moment to pause before, let's see, what's the name of the next chapter?
The Great Debate or the Big Debate?
The Last Debate, which sounds exhausting. I say this as someone who starts multiple arguments over trivial things, and that sounds exhausting. And then the Black Gate opens. Yeah, so like things are gonna happen soon. So let's all sit and smell some flowers or herbs or whatever. So this chapter starts off. The battle has ended, and they're all coming back into the city, and Merry is not feeling great. He's like, oh my God, I like don't know where I am, what's happening. And like, as he was walking up, I had this thought of, oh wait, I bet you he's going to be reunited with Pippin. And then like, as I read that thought, it says, but suddenly into his dream, there fell a living voice. Well, Merry, thank goodness I have found you. He looked up and the mist before his eyes cleared a little. There was Pippin. Oh, buddies.
It's so sweet. Oh, finally reunited. Oh, I love those two so much. They're so sweet. This whole, the first like 3 or 4 paragraphs of this chapter are so visual and so intense about carcasses of monsters and burning pyres of bodies and all of this horrible stuff that's happening, and poor Merry is just like, everybody else is getting carried and poor Merry has to like walk. It's so sad and intense. And then there's Pippin, the living voice that breaks through it all. He's like the like light in the tunnel for Merry. Those two lads. I love them.
What I love about this scene is that apparently Merry was with the group heading to the Houses of the Healing and just fell asleep on his feet and took a wrong turn.
Yeah.
And Merry had to go, or Pippin had to go and find him. And I can just imagine that for him, like deliriously just plodding forward, exhausted and like cursed. Also, like he's got this curse on his arm now. and just like barely making it. And it's a really powerful image that he's just like alone in this alley that he's wandered into, and there's Pippin.
Yeah, this is so sweet. And then when Pippin, next thing Pippin does is ask him if he's hurt, and he's like, no, I'm fine, except that I can't feel my arm.
Yes, yes. He's like, no, I'm fine. I mean, my right arm is completely numb. Don't know what that's about, but
can't use it. But I think I'm fine.
I stabbed a guy, and my sword just crumbled.
Yeah, he's like,
weird.
Yeah, my sword burned all the way like a piece of wood. That's so followed intense. By Pippin's face was anxious.
Yeah, you think?
I would also be anxious. And then poor Merry, oh my God. So Pippin's like, okay, I'll help you, buddy. It's okay. We're going to go get help. And Merry, I literally wrote down, I drew like a crying emoji in my notes. He says, are you going to bury me?
Heartbreaking.
And
heartbreaking.
It's like a child who thinks that they're going to die. And at first I didn't really know the extent of his injuries. And I was like, obviously he's injured, but he's going to go get help and he's not going to die. I didn't realize until later in the chapter, like the seriousness of his wound and what happened, and that he actually could very well die. So I was kind of like, oh, Merry, no, he thinks he's gonna die.
Or maybe that he's already dead, and that this is like
are you going to bury me? Like, it's too late for me.
Yeah,
because he also said when he's walking alone before Pippin finds him, it says he thought, this is a tunnel leading to a tomb, there we shall stay forever. So he just must be like delirious at this point, thinking like, I'm already dead, and I'm a dead hobbit walking.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
And poor Merry. And Pippin helps him and carries him all the way up, and they walk and walk and walk until they literally can't walk anymore.
Yeah, Pippin's like, I don't know what to do. I can't carry him. And then comes I never figured out how to say his name before. Burgil.
I was going to say I've been saying Burgil. Baragon's son.
Yes, Baragon's son.
And he's gonna help. He's a good boy.
Burgil.
I listened to the audiobook, but I can't remember what they said his name was.
Burgil. So I used to be pretty good about like listening to the audiobook, to at least some of the audiobook, to get pronunciations of stuff. And that was like back in the day, we said like, oh, this is episode 50. I'll be coming up on, 1 year pretty soon too. And like back in ye olden times when I started this, I was like, oh my God, I'm recording an episode in a week. I better read the chapter now. And then today I was reading this chapter like an hour ago. So yeah, Burgil. Anyway, yes, Burgil is the little errand boy basically for the Houses of the Healing. And he's like, I can't help you. I have to run errands. And Pippin's like, well, go tell them that you have an errand
we
to
literally
run.
Can't walk anymore.
Come help us.
I don't understand what errand could be more pressing than, here is a dying hobbit. Like, come help. Like, he's already working for the Houses of Healing. Like, just change jobs for a second, guys.
Yeah. So he runs off and gets help, and we get this description of the healers and the Houses of the Healing, and like their expertise and everything. And then I like this sentence. It says, but now their art and knowledge were baffled, for there were many sick of a malady. I always want to say malady.
Of a malady.
For there were many sick of a malady. That just sounds weird. Anyway, that would not be healed. And they called it the Black Shadow, for it came from the Nazgul. So this is they've never dealt with anything of this, size and they have literal, like probably hundreds of, like not just who are the people who are sick right now? Not just Faramir, Eowyn, and Merry. There's also got to be like hundreds of other wounded soldiers. And they like are out of their element, pretty much.
Yeah. This passage really stood out to me because before the quote you read, doesn't it mention that in the houses of healing, they had cured everything?
Yes, it says
everything except old age.
Skilled in the healing of wound and hurt, and all such sickness as east of the sea mortal men were subject to. They could treat anything, and that they sometimes can live to be 100 years old. 5 score years with vigor.
Well, people used to live to be more than that, but
yes.
The line of Numenor, etc.
Yes, and but that's sometimes, occasionally, they people live to be 100 years old or more. Which is crazy. They've healed everything. They're so good at what they do.
But they can't heal a curse by the Nazgul.
Well, Nazgul hasn't been seen in the land for an age or two, right?
Yep. That pesky black shadow. Let's see. Yeah, those who were stricken with it fell slowly into an ever deeper dream and then passed to silence in a deadly cold and so died.
It sounds like what Frodo was sounds like it is what Frodo was dealing with back when he was stopped by the Witch King on Weathertop.
I did not even make that connection.
Yeah, how he was slowly fading into shadow and he needed elf medicine to bring him back.
Yeah, Athelas.
The Athelas.
Aye, sir, it's a weed.
Aye, sir. But yeah, it's the Witch King stabs Frodo. It's because they all get hit with various weapons of the Nazgul.
Yeah, there are like the darts and arrows of the Nazgul.
Yeah, Faramir was hit with the dart, and whoever it was pulled it out. Was it Imrahil? Pulled it out and was like, oh, well, I didn't keep it because I had other things on my mind.
That happens a couple times in this where they're like, oh, why don't you have this thing with you? And they're like, I was a little busy, okay?
Yep.
I think it's not just like physical wounds though, because what it sounds like is that this is an affliction just from like being near the Nazgul, like that they're so evil. They do have like a fear effect on people, like the screech of the Nazgul like frightens you to your core.
Yeah. And I suppose maybe prolonged exposure to a Nazgul can send you dying.
Yeah, the description really does feel kind of like a description of what Tolkien might have known as shell shock. But what we now understand to be post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes, I was reading about this earlier. Did a little research into this chapter. Buddy, maybe you did the same. Was that this was something that shell shock and PTSD was something that was really kind of first identified and categorized after World War I. Because the war was just so much bigger and so much more different than any other kind of war that anybody had experienced. And so Tolkien, having fought and had people die around him, would have known quite a lot about this black shadow that falls over people upon battle, and he turns it into a physical manifestation of an illness that can kill people in its wake. It's very, very sad, but kind of beautiful at the same time. Like this, like the symbolism of Tolkien always liked to say he didn't he was like, oh no, none of this is like based in real life. What do you
mean
but
it's
about
so
the
obvious
war sometimes?
It's not about the war.
It's not about the war.
Writes many traumatic battles and chapters about war and war tactics and
yes, clearly so affected by the world around him that he writes PTSD into his story here. But my favorite line in the whole chapter, my favorite part of this whole chapter, and the reason I think why I wanted to talk about this with you, is the line that comes up here after the description of the black shadow and everything, when Ioreth, the eldest of the healing women, says the line, "The hands of the king are the hands of a healer," and that struck me. I remember reading this as a child and that striking me to the core and being like, we know that this person that is meant to be king, or we understand that kings should not just be warriors and leaders, but they should also be healers.
Oh.
And I'm I'm obsessed with that idea. I actually wrote in my notes, every time they say hands of the king are the hands of a healer in this chapter, I write in my notes, take that, toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing.
Yeah, this is we're not quite there yet, but this is Aragorn's chance to show, you know, the other side of being a king, the diplomat, the healer, the person who is delicate, and who takes care for others.
Yes.
Instead of riding glorious into battle,
Yeah,
riding to ruin.
Which is
he
why
instead...
Boromir could literally never do this.
No, Boromir could never. And
Boromir could never. Denethor could never. That's because they're stewards. They're not kings.
Faramir could.
Theoretically.
And I maintain that Faramir is the Neville Longbottom of the series. But he could totally do it. But he also knows that that's not what he's meant to do. And we'll see more of Faramir in a moment. But yeah, this is Aragorn being a true king, not just a warrior king.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like a great point to think about, that like I didn't even think about that like not only a king has to obviously lead and be able to command and be intelligent when you have to like play in a battle or govern your people or whatever, but there is another side where you need to show that you can be compassionate and you can care for your people.
Yes, yes, and that is my one of the things that has stuck with me all of these years and all of these readings later, however many times I've read this book, and something that I think was really important to the story and to Tolkien, but and to the character of Aragorn and what it says to his going from he was reluctant to be king from the beginning, but he's always been a healer. And I mean, he heals Frodo on Weathertop, with the Athlas. He takes care of people. He leads them even when he thinks it's not his destiny at all. And he's so willing to put things off and to let other people take the spotlight and stuff until finally this is the moment where he can say he's walked into the city of his people, into his rightful place. And has done the work of king without taking the credit for it, sneaking in under cover of darkness. And that's, I just think that this is so much to his character and his nobility. I love him so much.
Yeah, so this line that we're talking about, this is said by the kind of the main healer, and because they're like, oh no, what do we do? This is crazy. And she's like, well, it's an old saying, the hands of the king are the hands of a healer. And Gandalf says, men may long remember your words, Ioreth. Is that how you say Ioreth?
That's how I've been saying.
Yeah, Ioreth.
For there is hope in them. Maybe a king has indeed returned to Gondor. And then he says,
that's the name of the book.
Oh my God, he did.
He says the thing.
Sort of, almost, yeah. Or have you not heard the strange tidings that have come to the city? And I love her response. I've been too busy with this and that to heed all the crying and So I'm going to bring this up now. Which I didn't realize, I made this connection later, towards the end of the chapter. But Ioreth reminds me of the grandma in Mulan, who's just like...
Yes, absolutely.
Who's like, well, I don't have time to sit and listen to city gossip, okay? I have been saving all these people, so you get out of here and you go do something.
In case you didn't know, there's a war on.
Yeah.
And a mysterious new disease that we're trying to deal with.
Yeah.
And that she can look up at Gandalf, maybe one of the most terrifying people on all of Middle Earth, and sass him so hard.
Yes.
Also, that she's one of only 9 female characters with the speaking role in this whole series.
Oh, that's true. I better go update. I made a TikTok a couple months ago about here's to all the female characters, and it's gonna be short.
It's like Lobelia Sackville-Baggins, Goldberry, Orwyn, Eowyn, Ioreth, Rosie Cotton, and...
You're missing kind of the main one.
Who? What? I said Eowyn and Arwen. Oh, and Galadriel. Gee whiz. Forgot it. Yeah. I was trying to go in order, but
I also gave the Entwives a shout out.
But they don't even speak. They're not even there.
They're lost.
Anyway, yeah, so speaking of the king, we cut to This is also the chapter where all the people are coming back together. So I'm going to mix up all the people all the time.
I love that.
Aragorn, Éomer, and Imrahil. So side note, I love Imrahil. He just showed up out of nowhere and he's been doing great the whole time.
He's so great. He's such a prince.
Anyway, they've reached the city and Aragorn's like, I'm gonna stay. I'm not gonna go in the city and act all high and mighty and be the king. I'm just gonna stay out here like the humble man that I am. And I'm gonna wait because I don't want to come in and, act like I own the place when I just showed up here out of nowhere. Denethor's got a handle on it, right? Because Prince Imrahil says, he's like, yeah, that's pretty smart. Talking about Denethor, he is strong-willed and proud, but old, and his mood has been strange since his son was stricken down. And I'm like, well, yeah, you could say that.
You could say that. They have yet to hear. Actually, not only have they yet to hear of what happened in the last chapter, the Pyre of Denethor, but they also, like, when they finally do hear about it, they're like, okay, nobody tell Faramir.
Yeah, they're like,
Faramir
we're not going to tell him that his dad absolutely lost his goddamn mind
and is definitely dead.
Yeah, we'll tell him that he's dead because I don't think we can hide that from him. We're just not going to tell him the details.
Okay, we're gonna just gloss over that.
Faramir has enough to worry about. He has to get better. So I think they're just trying to protect his feelings for a little while, and then when there are things to do that require full knowledge, he can know the whole story.
Oh yeah, by the way, you're steward of Gondor now, and it's because your father was insane and tried to kill you when he thought you were already dead. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
Also I want to Éomer real quick when Aragorn's like, I'm just gonna lay low. Éomer's like, buddy, already you have raised the banner of the kings and displayed the tokens of Elendil's house. He's like, they know you're here. I don't think you can lay low. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's when he says, I have no mind for strife except with the enemy and his servants. That's him being like, yo, no drama though. Like, I don't want to start shit with anybody. No mind for strife. I have an enemy and that's who I'm going to focus on. And they're like, okay, but
it's a wise choice, despite the fact that it's unnecessary at this point.
It's just largely unnecessary. Yeah,
but he doesn't want to start an internal conflict within the walls of Gondor.
It's smart.
It works.
Yeah. So he says, "You guys go in, ask permission for me. I'm just gonna pretend to be, Strider. I'm just gonna be a ranger. And you guys go ahead." And so they head inside. And, this is where, my heart kind of breaks a bit for Éomer. Because I should mention, they have sort of laid Theoden to rest, temporarily at least. And they go in
sorry,
state,
go ahead. I think. He's laid in state, right? His body is covered in a shroud and surrounded by candles and stuff. Yeah, it's not really a funeral, but it's that thing that they do with famous and world leaders and stuff, where they lay them out for people to look at before they bury them.
Yeah, right.
And it's very sad.
Yeah,
and he takes one look at it and he's like, "Where's Éowyn?
Where's Éowyn? She should be here.
Éowyn?
Where is she?
She deserves this.
Just as honored."
That's when I was like, no one f***ing told him that his sister was alive?
No one told him.
"Tell me, where is Éowyn? For I much desire to honor her." And
I was like, "Oh, she's still alive. She's in the Houses of Healing." And he's like, "Right,
what?
He's not here." Bolts out of there.
He doesn't say anything else. He just leaves.
Oh, it's so good.
Éomer, God.
He's so good.
So Yeah, so they go to the House of the Healing, and Gandalf is there, and it's like, okay, long story short, things escalated really quickly. Éowyn is alive, but she's almost dead. Faramir is also alive, but he's also almost dead. And Denethor is very dead. Okay, let's go inside. And they're kind of like, all right, we don't have time. And like, this happens a lot in this story, where when the characters are, reuniting after being away from each other and they're like catching up, there's a lot of like, oh, well, Denethor died, Éowyn almost died, Faramir almost died, but we don't have time to talk about it. Let's go.
Now is not the time to have this very short conversation where I could explain a few things. It's not the time.
Sorry, I just want to check my notes. Oh, because I wrote down, I'm glad I checked my notes. Yeah, Gandalf is like, yeah, so something happened with Denethor. You could say that things got a bit heated.
Oh.
Thank you. Yes, I did write that down.
Well, when a good joke comes, you gotta write it down.
Yeah,
that was an A+ joke. I love that. And his house is in ashes is actually something he does say, which like, ugh. Is that Gandalf being cheeky, or is he being poetic?
He didn't necessarily, he didn't say like, oh, Denethor was in that's how he died. He is also a part of the ashes. He just said his house was ashes,
So
It's like,
good.
we don't have time to specify that Denethor lost his mind. He had the Palantir. He almost killed Faramir. It's fine.
Yeah, and there's all this talk of like, wow, what a day for Rohan to lose its king and Gondor to lose its steward, and there's no one left to pick up the pieces. And I'm like, everybody here is here to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
Everyone.
It's like, you guys are by far the most qualified people, I think. Like, maybe Faramir at this point is, still sick and unconscious, but like, these are the most qualified people at this point. I feel very confident, And speaking of qualified people and confidence, they're like, where is Aragorn?
And they're like, I'm here.
should we go get him?
I'm right here.
This is when I was kind of like, so Aragorn enters, and he does this thing where like he has his gray cloak on that they had in where were they? Lothlorien.
Lorien, yeah.
Because he's just trying, he's just trying to like blend in and lay low, like I said. But like, it's not fooling anyone. Everyone is like, oh my God, it's the king.
Well, rangers can move unseen if they wish, but to disappear entirely,
that is a rare gift.
Yeah. So, Aragorn's doing his best.
He's being very sneaky. Sneaks on in and then lets Imrahil take charge. He's like, I'm just going to keep being the captain of the Dunedain, and Imrahil can rule the city until Faramir wakes up. How's that? Cool?
Well,
Good.
hang on.
Great.
My
But really,
favorite thing, though.
Gandalf is in charge.
But really,
that's my favorite thing, is that they're like, okay, they're like all in a little huddle, and Aragorn's like, okay, Imrahil, you seem to know these people. I don't really know these people yet. You're going to lead them. If the time comes for me to take over, once this is all over, I'll do that, okay? But really, we all agree that Gandalf actually knows what's happening, right? And Imrahil and Éomer are like, oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, no, Gandalf.
100%.
Yeah, we listen to Gandalf.
It says, and they all agreed upon that. And I just imagine them kind of putting their hands in the middle, like, all right, we all agree Gandalf's in charge, go team.
1, 2, 3, Gandalf.
Tolkien is so funny like that sometimes, where he can be so verbose about things, and then when people are making decisions of such grand importance, it's just like, and they agreed. Good.
Yeah.
Great. Let's go in.
Moving on.
Yeah. So he walks in, and one of the guards, it's a little boy, walks up to him and says, Strider! It's Pippin!
Oh my God. I giggled like a maniac when he calls him Strider in that moment, because everybody's like, oh my God, you're the king though. But you're the king though. You're the king.
You can't call him Strider? Like, what are you doing?
King. And Pippin's like, what up, Strider?
Strider, he admits Strider's going to be his last name.
Yeah,
now.
he just translated it.
He's like, I'll make it fancy.
Telkentar. And yeah, Telkontar I will be in all the airs of my body. Like, come on, that just means Strider in Elvish.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And
It's
yeah,
so
I love that the hobbits still call him Strider. You know,
So
it's like,
cute.
it's just a cute little reminder from like what this story was like when it started in Fellowship of the Ring in book 1. Yeah. So they stand around and they talk about what to do. And they talk a lot about plants. So they're standing there and they're like, hey, Aragorn, all of these people are moments away from dying. But we have time to talk about the language of origin of this plant.
Oh my gosh,
it's
so Tolkien.
They even lampshade it. It's so good. Later, when he's talking to Mary about it, he's like, "Oh, you could ask the guy in charge here. He'll tell you all about the language of origin, and that he doesn't think it's important, but he'll tell you every piece of trivia."
It's so good.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's like, it's Kingsfoil, and then Iroth's like, okay, Kingsfoil, but if I were a king, I wouldn't have this in my garden.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, that's not what I call it, but okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys are dunking on Kingsfoil, and I would just like to speak in defense of Kingsfoil, the greatest invention in Tolkien's like entire thing.
It cures everything.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And it's just a weed that everybody looks over, and that's the thing. You know that's what Tolkien's all about, right?
Yeah, it's that
it's a
unassuming
weed that
thing.
nobody cares about at all and has like a couple of names and nobody keeps it in their stores or whatever, but it turns out to be the secret, very fancy thing that can cure everything and all of that. It's Aragorn as a plant.
It's Aragorn, it's Frodo, it's all about this unassuming thing. And, you know, Kingsfoil gets mentioned once in the films. Spoiler alert.
Kingsfoil, it's a weed. It's Sam Gamgee is the one that identifies it.
Sam, do you know the Athalas plant? And he's like, Kingsfoil.
Kingsfoil, it's a weed.
It's a weed. And that's all they say about it. Except that it might stop like a Nazgul poisoning.
It slows the progression of Frodo's wound until they can get him to Rivendell. And that's the only time in the film they talk about it.
So to have this whole section on it here in the book was really gratifying because it was that moment, but for half the chapter. Aragorn's like, anybody got Kingsfoil? And they're all like,
no.
It's a weed.
I love the line, though, when she goes off on Kingsfoil, like, oh, it's so dumb, I hate it. It's a dumb weed that nobody cares about. And he goes, okay, but if you love Faramir, you're going to run as quick as you talk and go get me some.
Yeah.
Is that fine? It's so good.
Also, so someone, I don't remember who, someone shared this with me like a while ago, but it's a picture of Tolkien and he's like in his greenhouse, and then there are captions. This is like an ode, like a post from Tumblr circa like, I don't know, 2010. And it says, apparently people hated to go for walks with him because he would stop and look at every tree for like 20 minutes. And then someone else added, explains the books.
Explains the books. Really, that is because right when you think it's done, Iroth runs off and is like, okay, y'all go, I'll go fetch it. And then like 2 paragraphs later, the Master comes in and is like, hey, I heard you're asking about Atlas. Because I got some thoughts and a poem about that.
He's like, yeah, I mean, like, I've heard of this. I don't think it really actually does anything. Unless, of course, you give heed to rhymes of old days in which women, such as our good Ioreth, still repeat without understanding. And then this little, like, poem. When the black breath blows and death's shadow grows and all lights pass, come Athelias, life to the dying and in the king's hand lying. He's like, I mean, I don't know what any of that means, except it's explaining our exact situation.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know what possible purpose you could have for this plant that is literally made for this exact specific situation. But this
is one of the most ridiculous things that he doesn't put 2 and 2 together. Like, I don't understand. This is a realm where magic exists and prophecies are true. So why would you discount any rhyming couplet of old? Like, folk wisdom is real wisdom here, and it should be taken seriously. I don't understand
why Gandalf says, go and find some man of less lore and more wisdom who keeps some in his house. It's like, get out of here with your words. Like, you just talk. I need somebody who knows things and has Athelas. Go away. Get out of my face.
But this is kind of a central theme of the chapter, is the difference between knowledge and wisdom, right? Like, knowledge is a tool of the enemy. It's the mechanization. It's the pure, unbridled, like, science facts. But wisdom is like using knowledge correctly and with grace. It's the difference between Aragorn and Denethor. A wise man versus a knowledgeable man, right? Like, this is a microcosm yet again. Everything about Athelas is a microcosm for Aragorn.
Symbolism.
So Virgil comes running back, and he's like, I found 6 leaves of this thing. And Aragorn's like, great, we will work with that. And that's where we're going to leave this episode for this week. Buddy, Alice, and I had a lot to say about this chapter. So there will be a part 2 coming next week. You can find all of their links in the description to their social media and everything, and make sure to go listen to Those Happy Places. You can also find links in the description to resources that I think are helpful in terms of unpacking and, what to think about or how to think about, the comments made by She Who Must Not Be Named. And there are also links to organizations that I think would be really great if you were able to support them. That's What I'm Talking About is a proud member of WB&E. You can learn more about that by going to wbne.org. Not sure if you can hear that, but there's protesting going on outside my apartment. 2020. You can learn more about that by going to wbne.org, where you can find other shows on the network like Bacon and Eggs.
Howdy, yokes. I'm Tyler Carlin.
And I'm Ethan Edgehill.
And we host Bacon and Eggs, a movie lovers podcast.
It's the most roll your eyes, I've seen it before concept for a show.
But with new hosts, I promise. Each week, we sit down together and watch a beloved movie.
We start by looking at some critical and concrete points and let our conversation flow from there.
We've covered all sorts of movies, from Jaws to Little Women.
From the Lego Movie to the Lego Movie 2.
From Marvel to Star Wars.
From Back to the Future to Back to the Future Part 2.
And tangents from our frustrations with fast food
to discussing our fear of the mighty loon.
So if you want a podcast that makes you laugh,
download Bacon and Eggs, a movie lovers podcast.
With new episodes available every Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts, and now on WBNE.org.
Ghostbusters 2!
My hope and dream was that you would say that.
The cover art is by Graphite, aka Vaishon Brandon. You can support him on Instagram at graphite.vmb. You can find the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at TolkienAboutPod, and you can also join the Facebook group. You can find me on Twitter at MCWhatsup and Instagram at MCTurnedDownForWhat. And you can support the podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/TolkienAboutPod. This week's sponsor is Mott's. Thank you, Mott's, for being a wonderful, supportive human being, and I appreciate it so much. There's no discussion question right now because the thing the discussion question is going to be about will be happening in next week's episode, if that makes any sense. So make sure to come back for all of that, and until then, that's what I'm talking about.